So each week, each day of the week has...
Hello, Uganda. Good evening and welcome to this edition of the Hotseat on 933 KFM. I welcome you, our listeners across this beautiful land, the Pearl of Africa. My name is Patrick Kamara. Tonight, we want to focus on the road to 2026, the general election. It appears most people are getting ready. The political fever is on, and many will be coming to you to ask for the mandate to lead in different capacities. For us, we know today that police blocked the National Unity Platform from organizing the youth protest vote. And we also know the DP President General Norbert Mao has picked nomination forms for DP presidency ahead of the party's May 30th conference. We also know that Mr. Nandala Mafabi is picking forms for party flag bearer race scheduled for July. And at the NRM office, we know the office headed by Namyalo launched the anti-protest vote campaign dubbed Settle for the Best. Museveni is your best. We'll be looking to these issues, and my guest this evening, we have the Wednesday panel. To come on time, I have Professor Jared Karija from Uganda Management Institute. Thank you so much for joining us, Professor. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Patrick. Pleasure to be here.
Hopefully we shall be joined by Mr. Moses Vyaranga, Senior Presidential Advisor, and from the Great Lakes Institute for Strategic Studies. We hope to be joined by Mr. Godbert Mushabe. I should say, we are honored this evening to have a senior lecturer, School of Governance, Development and Society, University of Rwanda, a visiting lecturer, Uganda Management Institute, Dr. Charles Kiza. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Charles.
Pleasure, Patrick.
Yeah, by the way, I was hesitant whether I am going to throw you into this kind of discussion, but what you're going to do now as a lecturer, you'll be giving us marks, and you say maybe here we are wrong or we are right, and maybe you keep giving us some comments. Sometimes we go bare knuckles when you're talking about Ugandan issues. And since sometimes you're watching these things from the safety of Kigali, I don't want you to throw in the mud of Kampala. Literally.
All right, Patrick.
So, Professor Jared Karija, you know, let me begin with a very interesting one here. President General of the Democratic Party, General Norbert Mao, picking forms because he wants to run for the presidency. Right now, he's executing the NRM mandate as a Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, but in a couple of months, he's supposed to be challenging his boss to run for president. It's a hard one, isn't it?
No, it's not a hard one. I've told you before that NRM is not a political party. It's a political organization, and they're trying to prove that. Everybody come in, let's all move together. So I think that we give lip service as a nation to what we call multi-party democracy. But too, also, my brother, Honorable Mao, is trying to maintain the narrative that, look, I am working with NRM, but I'm not part of NRM. And these are very big issues on our governance agenda. The question is, was Mao co-opted as a political settlement to manage a particular wider constituency than the Democratic Party? Two, we have seen him have consistent critique of the NRM. Is it to prove that NRM can manage dissent and therefore to deflect the argument that NRM is an intolerant organization? Three, is Norbert Mao realizing that he has no space for negotiation within NRM for as long as he's not seen as the DP president? A number of questions come to the fore, and I think that the ultimate test is in what comes out. But you know, one of the definitions of politics is
the art of the possible.
The art of the possible.
But
anything goes.
But you see, you said he's been a constant critic of the NRM, and I want to agree with you. He's actually used a language that is more or less like poisonous. He's been so critical and so negative. And you know, sometimes with the gift of the gab, he has used the flowery language sometimes in a way that can show you the NRM as if it is a devil. But now he's been dining with the devil.
You know, the scripture says that we are in the world, but we are not of the world. I just want to use the same analogy. Nobody Mao is saying that I'm in NRM, but I'm not of NRM. Maybe to deconstruct that, Honorable Norbert Mao, in my view, felt that he needs to have space to demonstrate his leadership capacity. And one of the ways he realized, he was a guild president at the university, he became a member of parliament, a local government chief. So the next was becoming either a speaker of parliament, and he chose not to go back to parliament. So he has tried to become president, and he realizes that maybe he may never, or it may take long to be. So why not go in cabinet and see what happens there and make a contribution there? Other people may talk about seeking privileges and so forth. He could still maybe have got them without necessarily being in cabinet. I think someone who wants to become a leader, sometimes they are like, can I get a platform where I can make a contribution? And I think he's trying to do that. But what puzzles the citizens, are we in a multi-party dispensation?
But,
and if we are, is this a coalition?
We expected a leader of Uganda's oldest party to be a man who is ideologically grounded into the DP kind of ideology, that he cannot, if anything, hobnob with the NRM. So is he in NRM because he's ideologically also convinced, or probably this is a grosser ideology?
My hunch and my observation is that I do not find any organization called a political party in Uganda that I can qualify to be one. And therefore, I do not know the ideology of the Democratic Party. I don't know their aggregated interests, other than their motto, justice and truth and justice. So I'm hesitant, given my ignorance of the ideology and absence of the manifestation of the ideology in the public space. I'm hesitant to say that DP or Honorable Mao have an ideological leaning, but they could be having philosophical thoughts, maybe that converge with NRM at a certain point. And I think that at this stage, it is more of the strategic positioning of NRM as an organization to swallow and co-opt than... So, in my view, it is more of NRM achieving having Mao on board than Mao achieving by joining NRM.
We've been joined by Senior Presidential Advisor, Mr. Moses Viaranga. Thank you so much for joining us. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Patrick. Two doctors in the studio with Akariji and the guest
Dr. Charles Kiza.
Charles Kiza, how do you announce his name when you was in the vehicle? And good evening, our listeners.
So I just posed the question to... I wanted his analysis that the Honorable Norbert Mao, Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, and President General of the Democratic Party, is picking nomination forms to run against his boss in the race, assuming NRM picks President Yoweri Museveni to run for president, but it looks like that's going to be the case. Doesn't that already even look awkward?
First of all, in the introduction, you mentioned that Mao is picking, has picked nomination forms to stand as the President General of DP.
Yes, and eventually as presidential candidate.
Well, the two are different. Different. So I'm not sure whether he's standing for president.
So at this point, he's running an internal thing that you shouldn't.
Yeah.
He's not bothering you.
Yeah.
But he's coming for your boss.
Well, anybody can come. Anybody can come. So we are ready to defeat anyone. That doesn't bother me at all.
For somebody who has been inside and now probably understands the workings of the executive, are you not scared that now he could actually be very vicious because he understands what is up against, and he could actually expose you, and now you're going to find an opponent like never before.
Would that be anything new?
Yes, because before that he never worked with you. He was never in your cabinet. Now he is.
Would he be the first person in the cabinet to stand against the president?
The character of Mao is the first person.
Then discuss the character, not the fact that he's in cabinet, because he would be the first. I've had many other people. The late Smogarere in 1996 was a senior member of cabinet, deputy prime minister. After that, Minister of Foreign Affairs, who were exposed to different countries in the world as you are chief diplomat. I've had the Mzee Sali. We have had others from the army and so forth. So that wouldn't be a big issue that somebody is coming from cabinet to stand against President Museveni and poses a threat just because he's been in cabinet.
So let me want to know this with a lot of clarity from you. In case he's the President General and then the flag bearer and wants to run, when does he relinquish his position as minister? Will it require him to do that?
No law requires him to do so, but maybe common sense would.
Sometimes common sense is not very common.
It's not a legal requirement.
Let me bring in very carefully, Dr. Charles Kiza. I was saying I was going to carefully bring you in here. What do you make of the political parties in Africa? You are from the School of Governance Development at the University of Rwanda. What do you make of the political parties in Africa, and especially here in East Africa, specifically Uganda? Are we grounded in ideologies that sometimes we wonder how people come today, they are working together, tomorrow they are not, and yet when you look at the viewpoint is very different. How do parties work together, and at the end of the day, the next day they are contesting for power?
Well, I think working together, if you really have the mindset to serve, working together, it's okay in principle. But you could have different ideologies, but you could find some one way or another, where you can actually work together just for purposes of serving. But I think you say that Honorable Norbert Mao, that he was a critic of the current president, and which critic, is serving. Yes, serving. To me, that's a problem. That's a problem. If if you engage in constructive criticism, that is okay. But demonizing and then you want to contest for power, yet you are moving in the same direction, to me that is a controversy that is quite disturbing. You either choose, to walk your way, you pursue your vision, strategies and ideology until you contest for power, and maybe God willing you come into power, other than you have your one leg this side and then the other side, and you mix up things, and then you're going to contest against your own boss. It's a confusion. But that tells you that, I think, in my view, that people do not have this big hearts of serving the people, looking at the bigger picture, what do the people want, and then you just pursue that. Yeah.
All right. Dr. Charles Kiza, Professor Jared Karija, and Mr. Moses Biarhanga. Gentlemen, we're going to take a mega milk break on the hot seat. We'll be right back. Welcome back to 933 KFM, and this is the hot seat. My name is Patrick Amara. My guests this evening are Professor Jared Karija from Uganda Management Institute, Mr. Moses Biarhanga, Senior Presidential Advisor, and we also have a guest panelist, Dr. Charles Kiza, Senior Lecturer, School of Governance, University of Rwanda. We hope I'll be joined by Mr. Godbert Musabe from Greece, and we're looking at the road 2026 general election. Professor, is this likely to be more problematic?
Which professor?
Professor Karija. Is this likely to be more challenging to the NRM? You have Mr. Jimmy Akena is not running for a constituency this time. He wants to run for president. Actually, he said it on this radio show. He wants to run for president. You have, I think, Mr. Nandala Mafabi. He also wants to run for presidency. You may have, of course, Robert Chagulanyi running for presidency. So, in other words, you probably have Lango having a strong candidate, and maybe people may coalesce around their UPC. You have Masabaland probably have a strong candidate of Nandala Mafabi, and you have the Honorable Robert Chagulanyi, maybe in Uganda and Busoga. Are we not likely to see the NRM this time around failing to get 50+1?
Actually,
could that be the game plan?
Actually, you might even end up thinking that it is a conspiracy to make sure that President Yoweri Museveni wins with a higher margin than ever before.
This is what you...
I wouldn't be surprised, but I know it's not true. But I wouldn't be surprised that it is a strategic machination by people like my brother here, who is a chief strategist in practical politics. Because I do not think that those candidates are seen as leaders of those communities. What do I mean? I do not see Nandala Mafabi winning a region. I see him winning his Sironko somewhere and then splits here and there. I see Akena do the same. I see Mao do the same. And I see also the same with the Honorable Chagulanyi. In my view, the more candidates you have against President Yoweri Museveni, the more you guarantee his win. And that's my hunch.
Mr. Moses Byaranga, I know, for example, FDC, you have beaten FDC many times, and others who have been. I know you probably even have a handbook on how to beat them, and because you have a record to show, and probably in your mind you think you can beat them again. But are you buoyant this time around that NRM, considering how these young boys are also coming out with a certain strategy called the protest vote? This is going to be different. You're likely to meet a very different opponent, aren't you?
No, not at all. In fact, to pick from what Dr. Kaleja is saying, you see, the voters over the years are from 70 or for NRM and those against. So, when you get a Mao, for instance, standing, the likelihood, yes, is that, say, within Acholi, all those who don't support Museveni will support Mao. But those who support Museveni will still vote for Museveni. You can see the same in other areas. Like Bugiswa, you mentioned, if there is Mafab and so forth. I can give you a practical example because I do some bit of analysis. In 2011 or thereabout, Mao stood and the other guy from UPC,
Jimmy Akena?
No. Olaro Tunu. Now, Acholi has what they call East Acholi and West Acholi. One, the former Kitigum. That is the Agago, Lamo, Kitigum, Pade. And then the former Gulu, Amur, Noya, and Omoro. Now, Mao won in Omoro, in the former Gulu, the old Gulu, and Olaro Tunu, who comes from Kitigum, won in the other side. And in each of these, President Museveni was number 2. Wesley would come as number 3. Meaning, those who voted for Mao and Olaro Tunu, if the two had not stood, would have not voted for Museveni, but they would have voted for Besigye. So the loser there was Besigye, not Museveni. If you look in the last election, if you go to Teso, where Amuria stood, at every polling station, number 1, President Museveni. Number 2, Amuria. Number 3, probably Bobi Wine. Meaning, the Amuriat was helpful because those who voted for Amuriat would have otherwise voted for Bobi Wine because for them they were anti-Museveni. So that one doesn't. I don't feel so much concerned that what you raised that won't it make NRM lose? No, those who are for NRM would vote for Museveni, irrespective of where else has stood from somewhere else. But when they stand, in other words, if there were 2 candidates, Museveni and Kyagulanyi, all those who have voted for anti-Museveni will have voted for Kyagulanyi. So when those who are against President Museveni are more than one, as Kadeja was saying, they just split their own votes.
Okay.
But you maintain your core votes, and that's what we're working on. And I can assure you, in a place like here in Uganda and in Kampala, we have gone much deeper. Yesterday was somewhere there in Katanga, in Wandike there. We have been.
The man is coming.
We are doing some good work. We are doing some good work. You just watch this space.
Okay, Dr. Charles Kiza, do you realize that in Africa and even this region, the voting patterns seem to take an ethnic dimension? There's an element of, politics of identity as of interests. Why are we still stuck on identity as opposed to interests? And everybody wants their man. And Masaba land, you have a Mugisho, I come from Toro, I need them to Toro man. Or I come from Uganda, somebody from Uganda. Why is Africa more close on identity?
I think basically people do not have a clear understanding of really what is essential for them. You don't eat identity, no. Irrespective of whether someone comes from there, where you do not belong, as long as someone promises that actually they have values, they have principles, they are actually going to work for the public good, to promote broader interests, go for that. But I think people have not, matured enough to understand that simple reality. And they say, look, even if you're my brother, but if you are not going to do much, I'll just go for another person. I'll go for Moses. If Moses actually proves himself to be someone, credible and someone, reasonable, someone who is going to advance us, irrespective of where we come from. Yeah.
Okay. Professor Charles, Dr. Charles Kiza, Professor Janet Gareja, and Mr. Moses Viarango, we're taking a break. And when we come back, I want to stay on that issue a little more, the issues of identity versus interests. How can we break free from this kind of politics of identity that seems to be really engulfing us? We'll be right back.
KM.
Welcome back to 933 KFM, and this is the Hot Seat. My name is Patrick Amar. My guest, I have Professor Janet Gareja, Dr. Charles Kiza, Mr. Moses Viarango, and we have been joined by Mr. Godbert Mushabe from the Great Lakes Institute for Strategic Studies. We congratulate you for having been able to beat the jam. Finally, you're here.
I'm telling you, this is, you have to learn how to survive in Kampala, my friend.
But I'm told nowadays you can just pay some money and then some guy will bring you a siren.
I try not to all the time.
Why don't you put something on your car, like I see some guys in the grill, and then you can keep it some and
train horns
and train some horns.
By the Moses,
a horn for a train.
These Ugandans who put those discorates on cars, they have come back. They had removed them.
Why don't you also get
MK gave a directive.
They had removed them. Now they are back. I don't know. I don't know. The indiscipline in this town really just baffles me.
Chaos City.
Yeah?
Welcome to Chaos City. Now, welcome to Chaos City. Now, Godbert, thank you so much for joining us. before you came, I posed a question that it appears, at least I've heard it from the Honorable Jimmy Akena. He wants to run for presidency, and probably the calculation that you capture northern Uganda, Lango, and then you have Mr. Nandala Mafabi has picked nomination forms to run as flag bearer, I think, for his... He also wants to capture Masabaland and probably another person. There is an element of politics of identity that we seem to be stuck on. Do you read that?
Where are they? I mean, these people come from these regions. They are contesting for president. So why are you saying
because at the end of the day, they're like, I will capture this region, and then somebody will capture the region. Do you think if they run that
manifesto? Is that their manifesto? I don't know. No, I think I have said here time and again that in some of the cases we come here and discuss really very, very peripheral things. A discussion of whether Nandara picked forms or Akena or Mao, I really don't find it very compelling for me, because anybody can pick forms, but what are they going to do? I think that the discussions that we are supposed to be having are the ones that deal with the electoral system, the electoral management system, the political infrastructure in which all these guys are operating. I think that for me, that's the core. That should be the core of the discussion. If you have an electoral system where you have an electoral commission that operates as a wing of the ruling group, you have the army and the police and the intelligence, all of them working for the ruling group now, like NRM. So you can discuss how many people have picked forms. You can discuss who is planning what. That for me, that discussion, I find it very, very peripheral. And of course you have some politicians. They are okay. Politicians are normally okay. A politician can decide that I want to win a constituency. So in other words, his entire mindset and mental programming is about winning a constituency. Does that change the trajectory of governance of this country? I don't think so. The guy can win a constituency, go to parliament, get a salary, get paid. That's fine. But I don't want to spend my time discussing on whether this person will win this constituency or not, because as far as I'm concerned, we have as a country, we have a problem that is at a macro level. Our politics are broken. The constitution has been basically relegated. Otherwise, if it was not, there is no way police would be stopping people like the Chaguranyi people who are trying to mobilize. Remember that there is an election coming for the youth. I think that's around May. Now, this is a political party which is registered, recognized under the law, and they are saying we're going to organize and campaign for our people who are going to contest. And the police say you can't do it. And then you want us to come and discuss whether Nandara has picked forms. I really find this debate a bit kind of like a diversionary even.
But don't you believe that some people have their strongholds, even in greater democracies? There are strongholds. You hear this is a blue wall, this is a red wall, and sometimes people concentrate on that, and that becomes.
No, these are democracies. So if you're talking about the U.S., this is a country that has political parties. They are historical. They have their known agendas and programs. If you are a Democrat, you know that you're dealing with social security, you are dealing with healthcare, you are dealing with working class people. If you are Democrats, you are for tax cuts, you are for private sector. So these are known. In our case, I don't think that there is any difference between these guys. Museveni becomes different because he's a rebel leader. He fought a war. He raised an army, fought, captured the government, and he has continued to control it with his army. Everybody else is just dancing on the sidelines. So you can't now compare. All of a sudden, you compare Uganda with established democracies like the U.S.
So the Moses have been coerced into it?
Huh? No. By then, most of these people, they are survivors. Moses knows if he's not in NRM, probably, if he wanted to be in politics, if he's not in NRM, he can't be anywhere.
The man is a serious businessman.
Yeah, no, so,
and he loves, and a serious farmer, and he loves farming. At least that's what I know.
No. Okay, so let me put it this way: that where we are now as a country, we have structural problems, structural limitations on how you run a democracy, how you run your economy, how you run your social infrastructure. The problems are structural. And you have to first deal with those structural problems to begin to deal with the procedure of one man, one vote. This is a campaign. These are the what. So there are structural problems you have to deal with. The state, I've said time and again that the state institutions of this country have been captured. They work for the ruling regime. They don't work for us. Whether it is the police, whether it is the judiciary, whether it is the electoral commission. I've told you you've seen even during during elections, these Moses and the electoral commission, they will say if Messenger says my votes were stolen, the electoral commission will be the one saying, why didn't you put polling agents? Ordinarily, if you have an electoral commission that understands its job, which is paid by the taxpayers, their job is to protect your mandate as a citizen. So even you, Kamara, even if there was a polling station where you are not there, where you don't have agents, the Electoral Commission should be protecting your votes and those of NRM, those of DP, those of whoever, because that's their job. But in here now, you know that if you are contesting on an opposition ticket, you have to protect your votes from NRM, from Uganda Police, and from the Electoral Commission. You think that's an easy job?
I think you hit hard. Moses,
you think that's an easy job?
Moses, Goodbye is talking about a system, institutions that are broken, like general brokenness, if I may use that word. Do you buy that? I'm sure you don't.
No, he doesn't. Moses doesn't buy that.
Goodbye doesn't surprise me. He says the same thing over and over. You can read his answer before he answers the question. So he has his own challenges with NRM. Because you were talking about the candidates earlier, being many and so forth. Remember, I was in one of the elections, was it 2011 or thereabout? You can correct me. When was it TDA?
The Democratic Alliance.
No, there was something called TDA, where Godba was a senior partner or participant.
with the JPAM?
No, trying to bring candidates together. The people are opposed to NRM or President Museveni, they found one candidate. So it was a project which failed. So when he sees you talking about as many candidates, it goes back to his mind and he says, but I tried this and failed. So I wouldn't be surprised about his answers on some of these matters. As far as the election process is concerned, the laws are very clear. It's also true that in many instances, some of the candidates don't have agents for themselves at the polling station. And see, the idea of agents, every candidate having their own agents, at least two, or a maximum of two, is that, and they follow the procedure. After the election after closing the voting, they count the votes, the ballots, and they say who got what. They fill in that the DR form, what they call declaration of results form, and they retain a copy for their candidate, and each of the candidates gets a copy through their agent, and the others are forwarded to the tallying center, the district. So for me, that's the basic. That you find that no candidate has all the DR forms from their polling agents. So even some of the claims that this happened, they have no basis for saying that we were cheated. That's a big concern. Now, either through technology, one must find ways that either we take a picture and send it somewhere, so that each candidate or party You can have your own internal tally center and compare with the results being announced by the Electoral Commission. But if somebody said I was cheated, I was the president, but how much did you get? He cannot tell, but he said I was cheated. Fine. But if you use that mechanism, then whether somebody is trying to, the Electoral Commission wants to cheat you at Nambole where they announced from, for you to have your own results. I've mentioned it here before, at least at parliamentary level. I remember it is the Honorable Janato Mkwaya, former minister, former MP. There was an election in Mukono where she used to stand, I think Mukono South. And the returning office had announced some alerts, St. Fred, or something like that. And the general voice said, no, my DDR forms showed different. So she walked into the Electoral Commission office and said, you're announcing the wrong person. These are DDR forms from
the different
all the polling stations, and they're showing this when you add them up. So this is what we need in the process of cleaning up the electoral process.
I hope you know that the president, your candidate in the last election, is on record having said they stole his 1 million votes.
No, they said
with all these.
They added in. Even
that even him with such an army of all these agents and that 1 million votes was stolen. He's on record.
No, yeah, he's on record. They said so, but they said so many times that the group which has been talking about, there was an infiltration of ballot papers in the system for some of the MPs and at presidential level, but notwithstanding, we still won.
You should have sacked the Electoral Commission managers.
That notwithstanding, we won.
1 million votes, really?
Yeah.
That was stolen from you? Very hard to believe. But Professor, what's your assessment about this, the system within which this contestation is going to happen? Because according to Godiba, it's not leveled, it's not proper, it's broken.
The system is wide. And I'm going to choose to look at the peripheral system, which Godiba said is at the peripheral. From political sociology, there could be all this institutional infrastructure which the two are talking about, but also there are social dynamics. And I want to go back to the question of identity politics. I think that someone demonizes identity politics. Identity politics has been, we are using a dichomatic analysis. Identity is bad.
Can you put that word in Ruchiga?
A dichotomy.
Two principles.
Two principles.
Yes.
And as if they are contrasting each other.
Keep on helping our listeners.
And it's fallacious sometimes to just go dichotomatic. So someone has given an impression that identity politics is bad.
Yeah. Which is
interest politics
bad.
is good.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, the biggest practitioner of identity politics is NRM.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Having youth representatives, quotas for women, army representatives, disabled, elderly.
Yeah.
They call it inclusive.
Exactly. Now, that is the potency. That's why I'm telling you that identity politics is not equivalent to bad politics. No. It is how you manage or manipulate identity politics. 2, a political settlement. A political settlement is about identity.
Exactly.
If it was not identity politics, Moses Ali wouldn't be in government. Musa Ichuru wouldn't be in parliament, in government.
Musa Ichuru?
No.
They wouldn't.
Why would they?
Why not?
Are they not Ugandans with the right to lead?
No, let me explain. They were fighting, but they were given
as an identity group.
Yeah.
But Musa Ichuru is elected.
That is later.
That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter.
We are talking about identity politics as a principle. So the demonization of identity
but also
politics,
his being in government is negotiated. It's not based on the elections. Even if he lost an election, he would still be in government. Musa Ichuru.
Okay, let's leave the name. The terminology, regional balance, is a diction identified with NRM than any other political party. Who sings regional balance? So the question, I've been struggling with conceptualizing identity politics as demonic, bad. It is bad if it is promoting ethnicity, which is when it is promoting superiority, when it is promoting disruption and all these other things. But if it is used as a tool for political settlement, if it is used as a tool for inclusion, if it is a tool for looking at the marginalized and giving them space, but the question is, when that is achieved and you sustain it, then it also becomes toxic. That's another debate. So that's where I'm coming from. And on the other side, so identity politics can bring inclusion. Interest politics can bring policy effectiveness, because you're looking at where the needs are and where the problems are. You are trying to solve problems. You are trying to be sensitive
of interest groups
and responsive to the interests of the population. So I want to disassociate myself with the idea that identity politics is equivalent to bad and dirty politics. Number two, Godbo was discouraging us to discuss individuals contesting for, but for me the ritualistic and symbolic in those particular names that were mentioned, it is hard for me to decouple them from the NRM.
Let me go to maybe a very neutral voice in all this. You know, Dr. Charles Kiza, in even greater democracies, the other day in 2020 in the United States, we actually saw that they are also not insulated from some kind of electoral malpractice and cheating and stuff like that. Up to date, Donald Trump still thinks he won the 2020 presidential elections in America, that he was cheated out of it. So I suppose some of these things are expected, that they will happen. People will disagree. People will cry foul that have been cheated. After all, even the better and greater democracies have shown us they are not better sometimes.
I don't think I picked you exactly, but
the issue of electoral malpractice is just not confined to Africa or Uganda. We have had such cases even in America.
Yes.
For example, the 2020 elections.
Okay, I mean, of course, you know, even in America or elsewhere, you will have those elements, but not, of course, to the extent of what we have here in Africa. Many African countries, you cannot root out, you know, you cannot really root out them, but just it is not a big number. It's not significant, you know, to affect the results in a way. And but it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. I would like to.
Let me put it like this: is identity still a problem in a country where you are a lecturer in Rwanda, for example?
Not
considering that it caused a lot of trouble more than 30 years ago.
Not really, because what the government of Rwanda is trying to do is to come up with, can I call it a policy of Ndio Munyarwanda?
I'm a Rwandan.
Yes, I'm a Rwandan, and you know, these, you know, the what the belligerents introduced, you know, as ethnic, because all these people speak Kinyarwanda. The Hutu, the Tutsi, the Twa, no. They said, you know, we are simply Rwandan. So if you are able,
that is working.
Yes. If you are able, they give you a job to do, or if you are, you know, and it doesn't matter who you are.
Okay.
And yeah.
Thank you, Professor. In 10 seconds, your parting shot.
In view of what we have said, we need political hygiene.
Thank you.
Both in terms of systems and the way we relate.
Political hygiene. Moses, your parting shot.
My parting shot is that I disagree with the professor on the politics of identity in reference to the formerly marginalized groups like the youth, the women, the disabled, and so forth. In the true identity of politics of identity in Africa were based more on religion
and ethnicity.
But if you're bringing all youth together, yes, it's an identity as a group, but we're talking about interests of the
youth. Thank you. 10 seconds, Godber. You're parting shot.
I am with Gerard. I think that whether it is interests, whether it's identity, it's important. In the African context, I have always argued and said I can be a good Munyankore Ugandan, a good Muganda Ugandan, a good Munyoro Ugandan. The idea that I should be hiding from being a Munyankore is just unrealistic and
Gentlemen,
unnecessary.
thank you very much. Good night and God bless Uganda.